But we dove really deep into kind of that service portion of the P&L, looking at that 55% gross profit, knowing that payroll, that 33% service salary service revenue ratio is the biggest driver of it. All right, we are getting fired up, people. So welcome to the Don't Be That Guy webinar series, part of the BMK Vision podcast that you can view on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, anywhere you get your podcast information. So today we're going to be talking about my favorite subject. We're going to be talking about the numbers. The title is Know Your Numbers or Die. And there's no exaggeration there. If you don't know your numbers, and we're not talking about a lot of numbers, we're talking like 13 key numbers. Don't get trapped into thinking there's hundreds and hundreds of KPIs or even dozens and dozens of KPIs. There's a very few set number that are absolutely vital. And if you'll master those, if you'll train on those, if you'll start tracking those, your life improves significantly. And why do we focus on those numbers so much? Well, part of it is just to see how we're performing operationally. Part of it's seeing how we're performing against any goals, objectives, milestones that we're trying to meet. But a big part of it is that triangulating problems. If we can have real confidence in our numbers and we're reading those, there's a lot being told to us, whether they indicate that we have a pricing issue on our managed service agreements, whether it might indicate that we've got a time entry problem. That stuff starts jumping out at you when you start mastering these numbers. So today, and I'm just going to look at my phone here for a second. Today, our good friend Ryan is in Egypt and he's actually looking at pyramids as we speak. And he's going to try to join us for a minute, but that means it's just going to be me today. So I really, really encourage you to ask questions, get involved in the conversation. We've only got a couple more months of these. We're going to end at that in December. And so really want you to get the most value out of this. Now, just some other housekeeping items. We're going to be moving these recordings and series. We're going to keep on doing these. We're going to move them over to a different platform in the winter, probably in January. We're going to be using a tool called Riverside. It's a different webinar platform, but it allows us to record in even a better environment. And as you know, these go over onto YouTube. And so make sure to check those out over there. Do us a favor, subscribe to them, like them, share them, comment on those. Those all make a difference. Right now, we are at a massive, whopping 71 subscribers. So I doubt that you follow or watch much content with channels that only have 71 subscribers. But do us a favor and help us get to 1,000. That's what we're really aiming for in this first year that we're on that and participating on it. When you go over there's a lot of interviews from a series we do called From the Trenches. So we've interviewed so far, there's probably about 15 interviews up there. We've got another 8 or 10 of them in the can ready to be released. And those are a lot of fun. So a lot of the things we talk about here, just kind of in this presentation almost mode, over on the From the Trenches section of our YouTube channel, that's where you're hearing other owners and leaders talk about their experience doing some of these things, talking about their challenges, talk about their wins. Go check those out. Again, give it a like, a share, a subscribe. And if you want to be featured on that, let us know. We'd love to have you get over there. Right now, we're booking out through November. We've got a big backlog, but let's get you on the sequence. And if you've got a story to tell or you've got an experience you want to share, get over there. Now, you want to talk some shit, be a little wild, go a little crazy, no problem. We can blur your face out. Those we've got a couple of those in the can, and those are really, really fun where it's really what's the reality of owning an MSP? What's the reality of really tough clients? What's the reality of really tough employees sometimes, or employees come on and tell us the reality of working for an MSP that isn't quite as mature as they would have hoped they were. So enough about that, enough housekeeping. Let's get into the numbers. So ask your questions. I'll keep an eye on the Q&A or the chat or whatever it is, but get in there. So let's think about some of those numbers that we need to track. Obviously, we need to check the revenue. Okay, what are your goals for growth? Okay, revenue sometimes is a vanity number. And what do we mean by that? That kind of makes us feel good. We reached $1 million in revenue. We reached $100,000 of recurring revenue. We reached $5 million. That's awesome. And I celebrate that with you as much as you do for yourself and anyone else would. That is a massive accomplishment. But that's an accomplishment of you've learned how to sell. Okay. That's almost it. Revenue is just a reflection of how well you're doing as a sales organization, as a salesperson. Maybe you're the owner in selling. It's a great reflection on the marketing that you've done. It's also a great reflection on how much people are trusting you, right? Getting those great referrals. So revenue is a performance indicator, but it's a performance indicator of very specific things. It does not tell you anything about what your performance, your operational maturity, how well you're delivering those services. Okay. So we got to check that revenue. When we think about that revenue, we got to think about it in a few different buckets. And we're always thinking about three buckets of revenue. One bucket is that service revenue. Another bucket is that product revenue. And the third bucket is that resold cloud services, as we call it. Okay. So those are three buckets of revenue. If your P&L today is not broken down that clearly, service, product, resold cloud, then you've got a problem. Hey, Ryan's with us.
What's
Hey,
going on?
hey, Ryan. Where are you at, man?
I'll give you one guess where I'm at, Josh.
That's an actual real pyramid there.
That is okay. You got the whole bus on speaker.
Outstanding. That is awesome. That is awesome.
So I wanted to make sure I at least made a guest appearance on your podcast today.
Well, I'm glad you did. That is insane. So that is a real true to life pyramid. There are two of them there. I see one.
So
I see two.
and if you look way in the background, there's three. And if we turn way around, there's another one. There's like tons of them over here. The aliens dropped off a ton.
Outstanding. I think, did they drop off a cell tower as well? How unceremonious. I think I saw a cell tower way in the background too.
Oh, yeah, they're cell towers. They got us covered.
That is insane. Well, Ryan, I appreciate you joining us. Are you going to be around to talk numbers with us, or are you going to get back to the fun on the party bus?
I think I'm going to get back to the party bus. I just wanted to make a guest appearance.
Outstanding. Have a good trip. Have a safe trip. Hi to your gang back there. Hope you guys are having a great time.
Thanks, Josh.
See you, gang. Bye-bye. All right, that's hilarious. Glad Ryan could hop in. So we think about those three buckets of revenue. If your P&L isn't reading those out really clearly, if you don't have that chart accounts built in a way that it is that clear, then that's job one. Let's do a little chart of accounts refresh so it's that clear. I don't care what order you have those in, but those are your three buckets. Within that service revenue bucket, we got to call out three types of service revenue. Okay, I'm going to pause this for 1 second because I think some of you will know these automatically. Okay. We got the granddaddy, the awesome one, the recurring. We've got the project, and we've got the hourly. I need all three of those broken out separately. Okay, because I need to know more importantly, you need to know what's my ratio. Okay, if my service represents like a pie chart, what percentage or what size slice of that pie is recurring? What slice is hourly? What slice is project? Now, if you haven't gone through that exercise to really study that, that's okay. But go do that and be able to say, this is a description. Descriptively, this is what we've had. This percent hourly, this percent project, this percent recurring. See where you're at. Go back and measure that as far back as you can or as you like to. And there's no surprises here. Maybe you're going to be 80% recurring, 10% project, 10% hourly. Whatever it is, it's okay. All right? We're not going to make any diagnoses off of that yet. All right? But if we come out of that service bucket and look at the three other primary buckets, product, recurring, resold cloud, and service, those three buckets, what percentage of your revenue is coming from each of those buckets? Okay. Are we 80% service, 10% product, 10% resold cloud? Go be able to tell that story to yourself. Now, listen, I have that unique opportunity that I get to talk to lots of MSPs. I've talked to lots of MSPs in the last 20 years. And people have a pretty general idea of what they have. And they have a vague idea. But there's always some surprise when it's not quite as consistent or spot on to what they thought it was. Now, what your ratio is doesn't matter on the surface until we look at what's the gross profit from each one of those buckets. What's our gross profit on product? What's our gross profit on service? What's our gross profit on resold cloud? And we gotta start understanding that because now it matters massively. Oh, let's kind of think of that weighted average thing that we started learning about probably in sixth grade. And we can kind of forget it. The easy math now, use Chat GPT and say, what's my weighted average? No problem. But that weighted average comes to that overall or combined gross profit margin. When I ask you, what's your gross profit for your company? I want a very clear and concise answer. We're 39%, we're 38%, we're 44%. I want clarity. Is that number, and we have another session coming up on gross profit is king, but we got to get through this so that conversation gets really much more in depth. But that gross profit number, it is king. And why? And I'll kind of save some of the punchline for the next webinar on that. But when we say what percentage of gross profit does service contribute? What percentage of gross profit does product contribute? And what percentage of gross profit does resold cloud services contribute? When we mix that up in the bag, we're going to get our outcome. Hopefully, it's real close to 42%. The only number that really matters is that gross profit number. We break those other things out so that we can answer the question of why. 42% is the target. We're at 44. Your only question as a leader, whether the number is good or bad, is why. And somebody on your team, and if you don't have a team of managers and supervisors, then you have to be able to answer that question. Why was it that? Oh, well, this quarter it was that because we had some really big projects. We crushed it. Our service gross profit increased quite a bit, and it's the biggest part of our revenue. Therefore, my gross profit is increased. That is an A+ level answer. So that's what we want to get to, is being able to answer those questions very clearly and ask those questions very smartly. Okay, we look at our service gross profit. Okay, we all know the target for that, 55%. We want our service department gross profit to be 55%. Now we're going to zoom in a little bit. What is the biggest influencer of that gross profit? Well, we'd have to ask ourselves, what is the biggest cost of goods sold or COG in that service department? Well, what is it? Okay. If you're watching this on YouTube, write it in the comments. The biggest contributor to COGS is the payroll. Right? All day, it's the payroll. Therefore, we have a very specific number in there called service salaries to service revenue ratio. We go a little deeper in that service department than we do in the other buckets of revenue. So if I know my target's 55% for service department gross profit, and I know my biggest influencer of whether I'm going to make that number or not is typically payroll, then I have to be hyper aware of that ratio of service salaries to service revenue ratio, 33%, which means I goddamn better have my service payroll as a COG in the service department. Okay. If you're on this, if you're one of the very, very many people in this session right now, if you're the person that doesn't have payroll for the service department in your service COGS and it's living under G&A in one big bucket, you're wrong. Get right. Okay. That's some lazy ass bullshit. Okay. I feed my family on you not having that right. And my boys go to college by you not having that right. Because once you start trying to take your numbers serious, that's the first place we're going to go. We know we're going to make about $5,000-$7,000 off of getting your chart of accounts built out in a way, getting your ConnectWise rebuilt, and working with your payroll company and doing all the things. So just do that simple little thing of getting service payroll up under the service cog. All right. Now, if this is resonating with you and you're kind of one step ahead of me here, you might be asking, what kind of payroll goes under service salaries in those service COGS? Well, it's going to be the dispatcher. It's going to be the service manager. It's going to be a project manager. It's obviously going to be the technicians. And that's who belongs in there. Right? And why? Because those are all direct labor costs of the delivery of your service. And they're either coordinating tickets, they're either managing the team like a service manager, or they're actually doing the work like a technician. So those are direct labor costs. So they belong in the COGS, not under the G&A. Okay. And this is not we're working on that, we're trying to do that. This is one of those light switches. Okay. It's not a dial. It's you're either doing it or you're not. Now go fucking do it. Okay. This isn't an optional thing. As when we look at those financials, when you look at these financials, the one thing that should frustrate you the most is anytime you or someone on your team has to say the words, yeah, but. Okay. I do probably 15, 20 financial reviews every single month with 15, 20 different clients. And when we get in there and we say, okay, service GP, wow, you're killing it. You're at 67%. Someone's going to raise their hand and say, Josh, yeah, but our service payroll isn't in there yet. So that's inflated. Okay. And that's some nonsense. Hey, Ryan's back.
Josh, well, we got back to the hotel and I was like, what the hell? Let's go sit in the yard with the pyramid behind us and gain some ancient wisdom on our numbers for Bering McKinley.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Beautiful framing. You got the Luxor behind you. So you're actually in Las Vegas, clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, clearly.
Oh, that's awesome, Ryan. So cool. Well, we're just getting to the point where we're talking
Okay.
about making sure that those service payroll is treated as a service COG up on
Yep.
the P&L, not under the G&A.
Okay.
You remember this from your MSP days?
I do. I remember having my sales team and my admin all lumped in with my tech salaries and
Mhm.
you wanting me to pull those out. And I realized the wisdom of that after about 6 months.
Right.
And then I started getting my service salary, service revenue, because that's what it really impacts, right?
Yeah.
Like if you put your CEO's payroll under your tech delivery, I mean, I think a portion of that should go there, but not the whole thing because it throws it off too much.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. Absolutely. Which is you bring up a great point. If we're an organization where the owner is deeply in the operating mode of owner or operator, and they're delivering services or they're part of that cycle, then by all means, what do we do with that owner's payroll? Well, you simply look and say, what percentage of my time on average is being spent in sales, in leadership, that go in the G&A, delivering services to the client? Well, that's going to be part of the service cog. And just review that every 3 to 6 months and calibrate that to what's actually happening. So yeah, great call out, Ryan. That's it. And I was just making the point that uh, deciding to move that payroll into the proper buckets, I didn't say it, but I'll say it now. That's not easy, but I did make the point that that's a light switch. That's not a we're trying to do it, we're going to do it. It's
Right.
either you understand the wisdom of it, like you said, or you don't. Okay, and we want to avoid those yeah buts when we're looking through the P and L and having to say, yeah, that looks really bad, but or that looks really good, but that's just a big time drain on those P&L meetings.
For sure. And I also think you owe it to your staff to do this sooner rather than later. Because what's going to happen is you're not going to be staffed appropriately with your service salaries to service revenue ratio if you don't get this number right.
Well, that's exactly right. And you certainly owe it to your entire staff. You really owe it to your service manager. And I don't know if we said this before, but I try to make a really big point of this. Don't come at me with some person you're calling a service manager, putting that very heavy gold crown on this person saying you're the service manager. Don't come at me with that unless the next fucking words out of your mouth are, and they have P&L responsibility. If they don't have P&L responsibility, delivering that gross profit on the service part, they ain't no manager. They're a supervisor, which is awesome too. They're still amazing, but they ain't no manager. And once you title them with that manager, then you better have your P&L set up in a way that they can actually aim for a target, not just some vague nonsense of doing a good job and making sure the techs have somebody that they can escalate to or any of that nonsense. They're there as business people deliver profit. Great experience for the clients, great experience for the employees. Yeah.
Josh, what do you think about tying that um, service managers payroll to those metrics?
Or like a compensation, some bonuses and whatnot.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. The first here's the now I'm very generous, all right, to a fault. So
Well,
here's
you are.
thank you, thank you. So the biggest bonus that a service manager get, and it's a big bonus, if they can hit that 55%, they get to keep their fucking job. Big bonus. Well done, brother. You did it. You maintained 55%. Keep your job. Well done. Okay. The second biggest bonus is if we're starting out at like 47, 48, 49, then I definitely want to give them some incentive. Hey, I'll share 2% of that delta with you. I'll share 10, 20% of it because you giving that one-time bonus is really juicy to get them to that 55%. But you're going to then be able to enjoy that 55% for years and years to come. And getting to that 55% is not, a lifelong journey. That's what am I paying attention to? Am I paying attention to the right things? I'm going to get there. It's just knowing what to pay attention to. So yeah, tying it to that outcome, super great idea, Ryan, for sure. Now, as we look at that, if we're going to go down that road, then our financials better be really, really clear to say on day one of this initiative, we were at X percent. If you can get us to, X plus whatever percent by this date, here's what's in it for you. Okay. Now that can be overwhelming because I'm gonna just take a guess at a lot of the service managers out there, they don't have a lot of this knowledge baked in very easily. So they have to get some coaching on that and understand what levers they can pull. And I'll tell you that first lever that they come across, once they kind of understand the formula for gross profit, revenue minus COGS equals gross profit. Once that really sinks in, they're going to say something that feels really like a showstopper to them. And as a manager and owner, it might feel like a showstopper to you initially. And what that is, yeah, but I can't control the revenue. So the only way I can get profitable is by throttling down costs. And that's probably not a good idea. Well, great that they put that together. They came to the wrong conclusion, but they used the math correctly to figure out what they can do. So we don't want to let them linger in that I can't control revenue nonsense because they actually can control revenue. Ryan, any ideas of how a service manager can control revenue come to mind right off the cuff as you sit there?
So I have two thoughts. First of all, we were very heavy project based, and there are levers that can be pulled in projects to make things more or less profitable in that. One of them is doing your freaking job as a service manager and making sure your technicians are paying attention to their budget hours. The second thing is making sure that the notes get back to sales as needed for additional sales opportunities, because it always happens. Josh, you got a technician in there, and even if it's like the receptionist is bitching about her screen, well, we got a nice 38-inch curved Dell that sells for $2,000 or something like that, right? Like, make sure that gets back to sales. It's not that hard.
Absolutely. So that is a phenomenal example of how a service manager can impact revenue. Have your systems in place that you can push those those observations, those leads back into the people that are selling. Absolutely. Another way they can
It,
do that. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
No, I was just going to say it always amazed me. I'd be sitting in a all staff meeting and somebody would be like, "Oh yeah, I'm so and so," like, and it would be something major too. It wouldn't just be like a screen or a keyboard. It would be like, "Oh yeah, they need like all new battery backups, they need all new servers," and even though it's not on the cycle for another year or two to be replaced, they really need them replaced now. Like, Okay, that's $25,000 I just heard.
Right. And they treat it like a throwaway statement.
Exactly. Yes.
Right. Yeah, for sure. My mentor used to always say, there's more revenue in your file cabinets than you could possibly serve in a year. It's there waiting
For
for
sure.
your thing. So another lever they can be pulling on is one that people like to fight against a little bit, which is find that hourly revenue. Now, if people don't know their P&L numbers very well, I can assure you they don't know their agreement gross profit very well. And that I'll take to the bank and bet on all day long. They don't know it. But once they start focusing on that agreement gross profit and see that their agreements are underperforming, and then they start asking why, well, the first place they go is we priced it wrong. Okay, we priced it all wrong. We are too low. Okay, great. That might be true. The next place they go is that's a really needy client. They're a real pain in the ass. They're really tough to work with. Aha. You're looking at that as a negative, and it might very well be. They just may not be fun people. But that's usually a really strong indication that we're not calling out that out of scope work. And gang, that's the hourly revenue I'm talking about. You know, buck up, put chin up, chest out, you know, grab yourself, by the collar and say, I'm going to start calling out of scope work. And I'm going to maybe take a real beating on that. I'm going to really take some abuse from a client. But when you start getting that cadence of saying, hey, that's not covered by the agreement, we're going to have to bill you by the hour. Is that okay with you? Hey, we can always start with the ask, tell, force. We'll start with an ask.
Right.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we get more confident. Now this is like, it's not an ask, it's how much of a priority is this to you? Because you're going to pay hourly for this. Then it's kind of forced. Once we get then in the cadence of the client understanding what's billed or what's covered and not covered, now we're just sending the invoice. Hey, you asked for it. You know what's covered and not covered. Of course, you sent you a bill. When you call me to ask me why you got a bill, my only response is, I'm confused why you're asking.
Yes.
Hey, I'm not going to go into launch a big, huge discussion about it. It's, can you say more? Can you clarify? I'm confused why you're asking. You asked me to connect your HubSpot to some other piece of shit software you use. It's not part of our agreement. Of course you ask, and of course we're here to serve. So we did it. Now you have a bill for $943.16. What the fuck are you talking about? Why are you taking
Right.
up my cell phone minutes asking me why I sent you a bill?
Well, Josh, I'm pretty sure you just dated yourself because everybody has an unlimited plan these days.
Cricket hasn't gone to that yet.
I see. I see.
You mean everyone doesn't
So
go to 7-Eleven, buy 2 lottery tickets and recharge the cell phone?
recharge the cell phone. No, no, no. You're special in that. But I also think you have a point here. I used to love needy clients, okay? Because needy clients are profitable if you treat them right, okay? Because most of the time, needy clients know they're needy and they know they fired 6 other IT companies because they're needy. And so if you're willing to answer the phones at all hours of day and night and charge them an emergency rate in the evening time, we made a ton of money doing that. And I would bonus my techs appropriately. Like if I was billing time and a half, you made time and a half. Okay.
Right. Right.
And that allowed me to have my technicians answer the phone when I called them after hours.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, for sure. And that's, yeah, the needy client, somebody, I can't remember who it was, said from a stage a long time ago, maybe a ConnectWise event. I remember I didn't really like the person that much. So I hated giving them any credit for awesome things they said. But they kind of said that they said, hey, there's no such thing as a crappy client, a bad client. There's clients who work for bad organizations who don't know how to serve that client. But he was like, I'll start an MSP and you guys just send me all your bad clients. I will make a ton of money off of them because I won't be afraid to treat them the way they need to be treated. And he meant that in a positive way, but it's kind of like you said, I'm just going to lay down the law with them. This is how this
Yeah.
works. And
Yep.
he's going to pivot and say, hey, you're too needy to be on my managed services program. You're perfect for my, monitoring
Pain in
plus
the ass
talk.
program. Yes.
Right. Absolutely. So yeah, knowing that you can pull those levers and then setting some targets for it. So if the genesis of this was, hey, my service department gross profit isn't where what is, and we've got a service manager who's still developing, and they say, I can't control the revenue. Hey, we're not mad at them for saying that. They just don't know yet. And that's what we're going to raise their awareness and say, here are the levers you can push and pull. Right. So that's the real takeaway from this story. But we dove really deep into kind of that service portion of the P&L, looking at that 55% gross profit, knowing that payroll, that 33% service salary service revenue ratio is the biggest driver of it. Now we just got to focus on how to manage it. And that's not what we're going to dive into here today. We're just raising that awareness of what the targets are. So we should be starting to see a thread here. And the thread is different percentages of revenue from each of those three buckets, that product, that services, that resold cloud, each delivering different gross profit margins. And when we do that weighted average, we get that overall gross profit margin. So let's just kind of talk through an example. If we're kind of a VAR, a value added reseller, we're not doing a lot of service. Okay. We're doing a lot of moving product, and we're moving product at, 15 to 25% margin on it, really low margin relative to our service, but we're doing such a huge volume of it that we can protect our bottom line. But if we're in that place where, hey, we move a lot of product, but we're really an MSP, and say 40% of your revenues come from product, boy, that's going to be a real drag on that overall gross profit margin. It'll be real hard to outpace the maybe 40% of your revenue that's coming from service. Right? If 40% of your revenue is coming from product at 20% gross profit margin, and 40% of your services or revenue is coming from services at, say, 50% gross profit margin, well, it's going to be a pretty big drag. Hey, you're gonna drag that gross profit down to, in this case, half and half. Half of it's coming in at 20%, half is coming in at 50%. I'll just take a guess and say that works out to about 35% overall gross profit margin, which isn't high enough. So you can concentrate a majority of your revenue in one area as long as you're going to be able to reach that 42% gross profit margin. But when things start getting away from you, and it's like, man, we're selling a lot of product, we're not attaching a lot of service revenue to it. That happens a lot with managed service providers with all you can eats, or that aren't really drawing clear boundaries with the client. It's like, yeah, the client will buy stuff from us all day, but they want it to be included, the installation of it, they want it to be included in their agreement. And we're not really defining that with our clients. So we're getting ourselves stuck. Happens very frequently. Right. So that's that ratio piece. And we're going to dive a lot more into that, into the gross profit is king that's coming up in a couple of weeks. So let's kind of keep moving through that service P&L a little bit, but we're going to come out of the P&L and talk about some key metrics in that service department. And Ryan, we're going to go agreement gross profit. We're going to go effective hourly rate, and we're going to go billable utilization. Any of
Okay.
those particular ones near and dear to your heart?
They all are. Um, Agreement gross profit this is the one that I think can be one of the trickier ones, just because it all the pieces have to fit together almost perfectly for it to like flow through the organization well, right? So like we have to sell it right, we have to service it right, we have to make sure that we did our like intake right, assuming it's a new client, because if we're supporting a bunch of crappy gear, we blew our hours almost before we even started type of thing. It's the one that I think that we should dedicate quite a bit of time to talking about how to do it right.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, you're exactly right. And I'll kind of start with a notion that I really started hearing in about 2009 or 10, and I'll still hear people say it, and they'll say it with such authority, whether they're talking from a stage or they're an MSP. I've heard people say, well, everyone knows it takes 3 to 5 months for a new managed services client to become profitable. And I want to pull my hair out. I want to freak out on that. I'm like, boy, you are accepting a reality that does not need to exist. I was just talking to a guy, maybe it was yesterday, day before yesterday, and we were talking about project management, and it got into this place of how difficult projects are to set a target for profitability on projects, and he started talking about onboarding. I was like, okay, wait a minute, tell me about your onboarding. what does onboarding mean to you? Does onboarding mean the act of training your client how to interact with you and installing your tools or your equipment on their network? Or does onboarding mean to you the remediation of all their problems? And in his case, I sure hoped it meant the former, not the latter, because he
Yeah,
also told me, yeah, we charge, 1 month of the recurring revenue. We charge 1 month as an onboarding fee. And our competitors aren't really doing that. So we were kind of talking about that friction. And
right.
I said, well, that 1 month is always just a stupid fucking lazy thing to do. Makes no sense. It's just easy, so stupid and lazy. Uh, but if you're gonna do that, well, then I sure hope it's a really tight scope of what it means. In his case, it actually meant the latter, not because he wanted to, it's because he never clarified. His team doesn't know, his techs don't know. So when it's time to onboard, they might have a loosely defined scope, but man, they just start going down rabbit holes and suddenly onboarding never quite gets done. Right. So that agreement gross profit, it can be profitable from day one if you'll define what onboarding looks like. The second piece to what you said there was that, how did we price it? Did we price it really well? Yeah, you know what? You can have every calculator in the world, you can do lots of amazing things, and whatever you're doing, you're right until you're wrong. And the problem is people don't ever find out when they're wrong because as a community, have not adopted agreement gross profit as serious as we should. So you can say, oh, we're $100 per user per month. We're $75 per device, $50 network fee, all whatever machinations you want to come up with. I ain't mad at any of it. But what I get real frustrated with is you're not going back and checking your work. You're not saying, how do we deliver? And then when we do kind of get a glimpse of it, or if we don't get a glimpse of it, we just have a feeling, yeah, that client, they're bad. They're a bad client. Okay, prove it. Prove it. Prove it in your financials. Prove it in your service delivery. Prove to me that your operations, your service delivery is dialed the fuck in and that the client just is bad, right? Or that you priced it wrong. Okay. You have ideas, you have intuition. Well, fuck your ideas and intuition. Prove it. Okay? And if you can't prove it and you're too lazy to prove it, stop talking about it. Just accept it. Okay. So I love this conversation because it's so important. Did we sell it wrong? Are we servicing it well? Did we onboard it well? And the other component we have to think about is, and this is the biggie. Okay. So as hard as I am on people on this, the easiest thing you can do is just configure your system correctly. Okay. Put a member cost in there. Don't be lame and say, well, then Bobby might see what Carl makes. Well, then say your permissions right. Do it right. Okay. Get that member cost in there and do it smartly. Hey, that's number one. Number two, the community's done a great job in ConnectWise, at least on agreements of using additions. Well done. You're using additions. Now we got to level up and put a cost on every addition. That license cost me 50 cents per user. That license cost me $7 per user. Put a cost in there. One of the really great things that ConnectWise has always done a great job at is that agreement gross profit report. Okay? It is right. It is absolutely balls on right every time. And there's only a few input settings you have to make sure that you do right for it to be an amazing report. Okay. So configuring the tool so that it can accept the information that you need to feed it. And then, of course, the basic hygiene of, are we entering our time? Are we entering 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day? Are we marking things billable, not billable correctly? All that just basic foundation stuff. Are we attaching agreement to every ticket? Blocking and tackling. If you'll do those things, that agreement gross profit report is going to jump out at you and you're going to be able to start making informed decisions, not having to rely on your gut or your intuition. That check out with you, Ryan?
Absolutely. They're assembling a giant wedding stage behind me, so I keep muting myself so you don't hear the chainsaws they have going off in the background.
Hell yeah. So what time
I
is it
mean,
there? Is it like 7, 8
uh,
o'clock?
so it's about 8 o'clock exactly. And so
Nice.
I mean, I'm watching them kind of like put the stage up behind me, thinking of how amazing it would be to get married in front of the pyramids.
Oh, hell
But
yeah. Oh, that
back to agreement gross profit.
yeah, for sure. And I'll tell you, it's been really fun to just kind of see it get darker and darker there, and
Exactly.
that pyramid refuses to fade
Yes.
into the skyline.
So there's another one right there that has lights on it.
Oh, I don't think I see that.
Okay. So at the end, we'll take a little walk about it.
Oh, that'd be awesome. All
So
right, cool.
yeah, yeah.
All
So
right.
for agreement gross profit, um, you have to. This is not level 101 stuff. This is kind of level 102 stuff
Yeah.
because you have to have exactly like you said, your foundation, your time entry. So when my text, I remember during COVID, my text came to me and said, Ryan, we're scared, right? We don't know. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Everybody's scared. What do you need me to do? And every time my text asks me that, COVID, no COVID, I tell them one thing. I need you to make sure you get your time entered properly. Because they already knew the corporate culture. They already knew to take care of the clients. They already knew all those things. But I always used that as an opportunity to hound them to make sure that they were getting their time entered on time, in time, and accurately, so that put a lot less stress on the rest of the system.
Yeah, hell yeah. It just it tells you a story. How busy are we? How can I trust these numbers? Is that input clean so that I, the owner, can make some really good decisions or service manager make some really good decisions? But yeah, we always got to emphasize that. And let's tie that time entry into one of our key numbers that we have to play with is that billable utilization. And there's another session coming up called Bill the Lies We Tell Ourselves About Billable Utilization. So I'm not going to, spill the candy in the parking lot on this one just yet. But one of the things that happens a lot of times, and it's a season for most people, of utilization isn't that important to me because my payroll is fixed. Most of what we do is recurring revenue. The time entry just isn't that important. So utilization isn't that important. Either that we're busy or we're not. And, I don't hear that as much, but I hear it too much. So why is utilization so important, Ryan, in your opinion?
So I have a fixed payroll, as you said. I've already paid for this technician. He's going to be he or she's going to be just as happy sitting there playing on their phone as they're going to be doing billable things. So making sure, and a busy technician is a happy technician. Trust me on this. It you think it should that's kind of counterintuitive, but the busier you keep them within reason, typically the happier they are. Billable utilization puts money in your pocket. Okay. It also gives you like, am I utilizing the resources that I have to the best ability? And it tells you a story about, well, maybe I'm overstaffed in too many high level techs and maybe I need lower level techs. Okay. Because maybe the projects that we're selling right now don't require the 6 CCNAs that we have on staff that are bleeding our payroll.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, it tells a great story when you start thinking about that. Like, well, look at this. We're going to talk about pyramid, that pyramid of staffing, where it's like our foundation, the most should be those level one technicians. Narrow up the pyramid should be the level twos. And at the very top should be those level threes or fours. And time after time, now I can literally say decade after decade, utilization numbers are lowest at the top and largest at the bottom. And if that's not true, it's because you're having those top level guys do the work of lower levels. So they are utilized. But beautiful segue as if we plan this. What's their effective hourly rate? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about effective hourly rate. So I'll give the example. Ryan, if I come to your house and say, Ryan, I want to paint your fence for you, your first answer should be no, you suck at that kind of stuff. But if you did make the mistake of saying, sure, Josh, you can paint my fence, and I tell you, all right, $100, okay, big long picket fence, you're going to say, sure, go for it. And now
Yep.
I'm going to go do that work, and I'm going to paint the fence, and now we're going to be done. It took me 10 hours to paint that fence. And now the fallacy would be to say, well, then, Josh, your effective hourly rate was $10. Right? You charged me $100. It took 10 hours. You made $10 an hour. They're not entirely wrong with that. But the thing we have to remember in that calculation for effective hourly rate, it's the total of the contract minus the hard costs divided by the number of hours. So if I painted your fence for $100, but I had to put, $10 into it with, you know, whatever they call that amortization of my paintbrushes and a few dollars of paint, and I had to have a couple Gatorades, and I had to spend some gas money getting over there. Well, okay, that all cost me $10 for that job. Cool. Now I made $9 an hour. Okay. Now that's an analogy for a managed services contract. So if I say $1,000 a month agreement and I had to spend $100 in hard costs, not my labor costs, just the hard costs, my licenses and whatnot, had $100 in that. I had $900 of what we call spendable revenue. Now, if I put 10 hours into it, cost me, all right, my effective hourly rate is $90 an hour. Now, this is different than agreement gross profit. We're not talking about the profitability of those hours. We're just saying we earned $90 an hour on that agreement in that period measured. Is that good or is that bad? Okay. Now we can all very clearly say that's bad because in 2025, nobody should be charging $90 an hour. But how we measure this is my effective hourly rate on agreements as compared to what we call our rack rate, what we had charged somebody for an hour of work, whether it's in a project or an hourly billing. Cool. You charge $180 an hour. Your effective hourly rate on that agreement was $90 an hour. So you are a 0.5x, a 0.5 multiplier against your rack rate. That's bad. We want to be at 1.125 times our rack rate. Okay. So if my rack rate's $100 an hour, I need to be getting at least $112.50 an hour effective hourly rate on my agreements. Okay. And we're not going to know that number unless we are really doing a great job of entering our time so we can get that calculation. But tying it to that pyramid of really top level guys, perhaps doing lower level work, well, we might say, yeah, my effective hourly rate is $90 an hour. Okay, cool. But you know what? I have Junior doing it and he literally makes $22 an hour. Cool. Well, you pretty much met the threshold of the multiplier on our cost, defining what our rack rate should be of 4.5. Good job. But then if we look and say, but Senior came in, he put a lot of time on that and he makes $120,000 a year. And that cost us about $60 an hour. Well, now I'm way upside down. I only made $30 on that effective hourly rate. That's a problem. So effective hourly rate by its own means nothing until we compare it to what kind of multiple we're getting of our rack rate. And secondarily, that AGP and that effective hourly rate have to play in concert together. So it's possible to have high effective hourly rate and low agreement gross profit, or low effective hourly rate and high agreement gross profit. Those don't move, completely synchronously. So becoming a master of those two numbers is key. And understanding how billable utilization plays into that is also key. So talk about some not 101, not 102 level stuff. Gang, that's graduate level stuff.
Yeah.
Okay? But that is where you need to be going. Okay? And it all starts with, what's my overall gross profit margin? 38%. Why? Ooh, my service department gross profit is really low. It's 49%. Why? My service revenue ratio is really high. Why? Because our agreements aren't performing well. Why? It's 5, 6, 7 whys. And as an owner, as a leader, anyone on this call probably, give yourself a break. Okay. You no longer in your career have to have all the answers. What you need to know is all the questions. And I'll make it real fucking easy for you. Just ask why. You can change your tone of voice. Why? Oh, why? 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 You can change it however you want, but just ask the question why, why, why. When things are good, why? When things are bad, why? When you're frustrated, why? Ask why. It's not always your job to know or be expected to know why, but it is your job to ask those people that you put those crowns on to say you're a manager, get them in a position where they can start intelligently answering the question of why. Ryan, what do you think?
I keep thinking of when I really learned this lesson, and I had 6 interns to thank.
Mm.
Never have 6 interns at once, by the way. That was a nightmare, but it was really profitable. We got a hardware destruction job at a bank, and I didn't really want to do hardware destruction. It's it's known to be not profitable, but there was nobody else that would give them the white glove service like they wanted. And I said, well, I'll give you the white glove service, but you're going to pay my regular hourly rate. Okay. And this was going to take a lot of time, and I didn't need skilled people to do it. I had a 6 month lead time. I brought on 6 interns. I trained them on the absolute basics of what they needed to do, which was switch out CPUs, mouse, keyboard, and monitors. They didn't need to even turn them on. They just needed to switch out the hardware. They got flown all over the United States. I mean, there was travel involved, meals involved, like all the stuff that we would normally be billing. And I think we were paying them 650 an hour. Our our hourly rate was 185 with this bank.
Dang. Wow.
And that's when it hit home. Like when you see, do yourself a favor, run a project just on the back of your napkin, 1,000 hours with a staff member that costs like $6 an hour at whatever rate you're doing. Okay. It's a free academic exercise. And then you're going to learn the lesson that I learned very quickly. Like, oh my goodness, like these big, complicated jobs that everybody loves to get, they go sideways sometimes. You need really expensive people to work on them. Sometimes these bread and butter jobs make you a ton of money. That's what bought me a DeLorean time machine, Josh.
That's right. That's right. Well, my biggest takeaway from that, Ryan, is that I understand why you like these pyramids so much. You've business modeled your MSP paying people $6.50 an hour the same way those Egyptians did with the labor to build those pyramids. So, well done. It's all
So,
making.
no. I just learned this, Josh. I just learned that there was no such thing as money back in those days. And
Oh,
so they got paid with salted fish and bread.
well, I expect in your next business venture, you're going to try to get away with that too.
I would love to.
Nice, Ryan. We're gonna wrap up the numbers section. Walk us around a little bit if you can. And
Yep.
I wonder, I'm just gonna switch gears here. Being there, being in that, I don't know how old these pyramids are, thousands of years old. It's got to give some perspective to how much we worry about our MSP, how much we worry about these things of business. And you're living in the land, looking back in time, saying, "What? We're just specks. None of this matters." What kind of feelings are you getting out of being there?
So first off, let me qualify this that I've been here about 2 weeks at this point. So I've pretty much lost touch with most of reality.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is going to be much more on the esoteric side than the MSP side. But coming from the standpoint over here, we take life too seriously. Okay. And the one thing that, so I sold my MSP about 3 years ago now. And the thing that if I could tell every business owner based on 3 years and 2 weeks in Egypt is enjoy your team,
Mm,
enjoy your clients,
mm,
because you're going to miss them. The numbers are great. The numbers are what's going to put your kids through school. The numbers they're super duper important.
mm,
But what you really take away at the end of the day is those mentoring sessions with Johnny, those
mhm.
mentoring sessions with Tyler, watching Tyler grow from fresh out of graduate school to 6 years in the field and getting recruited by a dump truck of money. And it's going to hurt you so bad to let him go, but you're going to be so proud that you trained somebody that they backed the dump truck full of money up to his door.
Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, that's some great perspective. I love that. And being there in particular, just kind of what does that do to your perspective as you come home and you dive back into your business and really kind of, get back into the other version of the real world.
So let me start this pre-trip, because my office building burnt down 3 days before this trip.
Oh, whoa. What
So
did you do?
so Silverstream Audio Visual, my audio visual company, shameless plug right there.
There you go.
We had the office building catch on fire. There was a burglary, and then we have video of them stealing all of our tools and then setting the place on fire.
Whoa.
I have been so now a lot of people, a lot of MSP owners, put yourself in that position. You would probably be canceling the trip. You would be like, no, I can't do this. Like, no, 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 no. You need to have your business dialed to a point to where you can say, you know something, this is all going to work out. Let's not take this super seriously. We had it. I mean, I was busy 3 days before I left. Trust me on that one. Like, I was talking to insurance companies. I called Dell and just started saying, send me shit, right? Like, send me screens, send me computers, send me docs. I need to rebuild an entire office now. Okay.
Wow.
The local telco company pulled out all the stops. They let us move into one of their vacant buildings, just paying the electrical.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Bill. And Dell's been great getting us hardware. I got messages I'm going to deal with a little bit here later. My staff will have new screens and computers tomorrow morning. And so not taking it so seriously, like, it's all going to work out.
Yeah.
The universe, and I'm going to get a little metaphysical. I'm in Egypt. I literally just climbed out of the Great Pyramid. That's why that first bus ride, you had the Great Pyramid behind me. That's
Yeah.
the same one that's behind me right here.
Oh, wow.
I was just inside that. That's where the pharaohs went, right? Like, to have that energy and then think about the building burning down, you're just like, this is just a blip in the radar.
Right.
Like, not even that big of a deal.
Dang, that is awesome, man. Yeah, I love it. I've watched several YouTube videos about. I think Mr. Beast got to go into a bunch of
I know.
uh, deep into some of those pyramids, and other guys taking some tours. It's awesome.
For sure. So next time, if you want, I'll throw up a couple pictures from inside some of the pyramids for our viewers.
Yes, yes, please do. And much less significant, I want to see the video of these dipshits stealing your stuff and burning the building. That's awesome.
Dude, I gotta admit, it was kind of sickening to watch. There goes my brand new Milwaukee pack out stuff. There
Uh,
goes all my Milwaukee hardware right out that front door. The
yeah,
good news is I have it to show the insurance company of all my Milwaukee stuff walking out the door, because I just spent like $5,000 on at Home Depot. They had their Labor Day sale.
yeah,
Or whichever sale they just had.
yeah,
And I was like, buy, buy, buy. And I'm like, my guys are actually going to be kind of happy about this. They get all brand new tools at the end of the day.
yes, yes.
It's
Wow, that's
and
crazy.
like, we just got all laptops upgraded, we just got all tools upgraded. So like, there is a silver lining, and the town is really pulled together around us.
Yeah.
The insurance companies, dude, I didn't know this. The insurance companies, we had, like, on building contents, we had about 200,000.
Right.
Okay, and I think that's going to be about right. It's not overinsured, it's not underinsured, it's about right. And note to all the viewers out there, you have something happen, tell them to send you 50 grand right away.
Oh,
And they'll be like, give me your wire information.
wow, wow.
So
Okay.
you don't have to be financing all of this out on your line of credit at 9% right now.
Dang. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Ryan Alter says insurance companies are great. So awesome.
So
Breaking
far,
news.
so good. We're 2 weeks into it.
There you go. Now that's great, Ryan. Well, let's do a quick panoramic spin of where you're at,
Okay.
and we'll call it
Okay.
some fun.
So we're at a place called the Mena House. Okay. So this is the wedding stage, but
Yeah.
more importantly, this is the restaurant where you eat breakfast at.
Mhm.
That's the reflecting pool that reflects the image of the pyramids
Wow.
while you get to eat.
Hell yeah. That's
Okay. And so we'll just spin around. Yep, there's more restaurant. That's the outdoor dining right there.
beautiful.
Spinning around. This is a huge complex. This is where you go meet the buses at to go on your bus tours and everything.
Yeah.
And now you're just going to see beautiful lawns and
Yes.
all the rooms.
In talking to you a few weeks ago, you said is this your second trip? Is that right?
This is my second trip. Yes.
Your first trip you did kind of on a, let's just see what budget travel to Egypt looks like. And this looks like a little bit
Yes.
nicer than what you described in your first trip.
Oh my God. This is so much nicer. We stayed at a hotel called the Old Cataract. Google it.
The old cataract.
So the Old Cataract, there are pictures of Queen Elizabeth staying there.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, it's no joke.
Wow.
Like no joke. I'm totally going to be putting a trip together that I'll be selling spots for next year.
Yeah.
And I'm going to come back. I'm going to lead the group through the pyramids. Maybe, Josh, let's do an MSP thing in Egypt.
And part of that sounds like a nightmare. MSPs are lame, but if you're a cool MSP, hit the link that we're going to put up on this for Ryan's email, and we'll start putting that thing together. If you're lame, don't bother. Or maybe if you're lame, come along and an Egypt trip will make you awesome. All right, go.
Dude, Egypt changes you. That's for sure. That's why I came back.
Awesome. Ryan, go enjoy your rest of your evening. Thank you
I
so
will.
much. All right.
No
Bye,
problem.
gang.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.